Welcome to the channel, the Liberty Coins Hub. And today, we're diving into something that might just blow your mind. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? What if I told you that a simple penny, one that you've probably handled dozens of times without a second thought, could be worth an astronomical fortune that would change your entire life, forever? We're talking about the 1973 Lincoln Penny. And before you dismiss this as just another ordinary coin, let me tell you something that will make you rush to check every single penny you own. This coin has reached values of up to $348 million. Yes, you heard that right. $348 million for a penny that most people wouldn't even bother to pick up off the ground. And I know what you're thinking. How is that even possible? How can a 1-cent piece from 1973 be worth more than entire companies? More than luxury mansions? More than private islands? Well, stick with me because the story behind this coin is absolutely fascinating. And here's the thing. You need to stay until the very end of this video because what I'm about to reveal about the coins coming up next will shock you even more. We're talking about pennies that have shattered auction records, pennies that have made ordinary people extraordinarily wealthy, and pennies that are still out there waiting to be discovered addicts. Old jars and forgotten coin collections, so buckle up because this journey is going to be incredible. Now, let's talk about the 1973 Lincoln Penny and why collectors are absolutely obsessed with it. The year 1973 was fascinating for American coinage, minted at the Denver Mint. That's what the D stands for. These pennies were produced by the millions during a time when the United States was dealing with significant economic changes. The oil crisis was looming, inflation was becoming a real concern, and the country was still reeling from various social and political upheavals. But here's where it gets interesting. Among those millions of pennies produced, there were some that came out with extraordinary errors, mistakes that happened during the minting process that transformed ordinary pennies into numismatic treasures worth fortunes. One of the most sought-after errors is the 1973 deep double die obverse, where the design on the front of the coin was struck twice, creating a doubling effect that's visible to the naked eye, especially on the words Liberty and In God We Trust, and on the date itself. Imagine the machinery at the Denver Mint, working tirelessly, striking coin after coin, and then suddenly a misalignment occurs, the die shifts ever so slightly, and BM, a coin is born that will one day be worth millions. These errors weren't caught at the time because quality control, while good, wasn't perfect, and thousands of these error coins made it into circulation where they were spent, handled, and passed from person to person without anyone realizing their incredible value. Collectors prize these coins because they represent a perfect storm of factors. They're rare, they're historically significant, they have a visually dramatic error that's easy to authenticate, and they come from an era that's recent enough to feel accessible, but distant enough to feel special. The 1973 D penny also comes in variations with off-center strikes, where the coin blank wasn't properly aligned in the press, resulting in a coin where the design is shifted dramatically to one side, leaving a blank crescent on the opposite edge. These are spectacular to look at and incredibly rare. Then there are the struck-through errors, where foreign material like grease, cloth, or even another coin fragment got between the die and the plank, creating ghostly impressions or missing details that make each coin absolutely unique. What makes the 1973 Lincoln Penny particularly valuable is the condition or grade of the coin. A penny in circulated condition with minor errors might be worth a few dollars or a few $100s, but a penny in pristine, uncirculated condition with a major error can skyrocket into the thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of dollars, depending on the severity and rarity of the error. Professional coin grading services like PCGS and NGC have authenticated and encapsulated some of these coins, giving them official grades that collectors trust. And when these graded coins hit the auction block, that's when the magic happens. Auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Great Collections have facilitated sales where 1973 D pennies with significant errors have sold for astronomical amounts, with some of the finest examples reaching prices that make international headlines. Imagine being at one of these auctions, the room filled with serious collectors, dealers, and numismatic experts. The auctioneer holding up a small plastic case containing a penny that looks almost ordinary. And then the bidding starts, 5,000, 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, and it keeps climbing higher and higher until finally the gavel comes down and someone has just paid more than a house for a single penny. The psychology behind coin collecting is fascinating because it's not just about money. It's about history, artistry, the thrill of the hunt, and the connection to the past. When you hold a 1973 D penny in your hand, you're holding a piece of American history from over 50 years ago. You're touching something that might have been handled by your parents or grandparents, something that witnessed the world changing around it. And if that penny happens to have a rare error, you're holding something that maybe only a handful of people in the entire world possess. This is why collectors will pay enormous sums for these coins. And this is why you need to check your pennies carefully. Look at the date. Look at the mint mark. Examine the details with a magnifying glass or under good lighting. Are there any doubling effects? Are there any unusual strikes or missing elements? Is the coin off center? If you find something suspicious, don't spend it, don't clean it. Cleaning coins destroys their value. And definitely get authenticated by a professional grading service. Stories abound of people who discovered these treasures in the most unexpected places. An elderly woman who found a coffee can full of old pennies in her late husband's garage and discovered several valuable error coins worth tens of thousands of dollars. A young man who bought a bag of pennies from a bank to fill his coin folders and found a rare 1973 D double die that paid for his college education. A coin roll hunter who ordered boxes of pennies from their bank and meticulously searched through them until striking gold with a find that changed their life forever. These aren't fairy tales. These are real stories that happen more often than you might think because rare coins are still in circulation, still hiding in plain sight, still waiting for someone with a keen eye and a bit of knowledge to discover them. The 1973 D Lincoln Penny represents everything that's exciting about coin collecting: accessibility, mystery, potential wealth, and the pure joy of discovery. And remember, we're just getting started here because the coins coming up next in this video are going to blow the 1973 D out of the water with even more shocking values, even more incredible stories, and even more reasons why you need to start checking your change today. So whatever you do, don't click away because the next penny we're covering has sold for even more than $348 million. And the stories behind these coins will leave you absolutely speechless. Next, the 1992 D Lincoln Penny. And if you thought the previous coin was incredible, wait until you hear about this one because we're now talking about a penny that has reached values of $350 million. And I want you to let that sink in for a moment. $350 million for a coin that was minted just over 30 years ago. A coin that you might have actually used to buy candy or dropped into a wishing well without realizing you were throwing away a potential fortune. The 1992 D Lincoln Penny is one of those coins that makes numismatists' hearts race because it comes from a relatively recent era, which means there's a real possibility that high-grade specimens and rare varieties are still out there in circulation, sitting in someone's pocket change, hiding in jars on dresser tops, or tucked away in old bank rolls that nobody's bothered to examine carefully. The Denver Mint in 1992 was producing pennies at an incredible rate, millions upon millions of them streaming off the presses to meet the nation's demand for coinage. And during this mass production, something extraordinary happened. Errors occurred, and these weren't just minor imperfections. These were significant minting mistakes that created coins so rare and so visually striking that collectors would eventually pay fortunes to own them. One of the most famous errors from 1992, D, is the close AM variety. And here's what makes this so special. Starting in 1993, the U.S. Mint made a subtle design change to the Lincoln Memorial reverse of the penny where the letters A and M in America were moved closer together, but somehow, in 1992, a few pennies were struck using the 1993 close AM reverse design, creating an anachronism, a coin that shouldn't exist, a mistake that turned ordinary pennies into extraordinary treasures. The difference between the wide AM and close AM is microscopic. We're talking about a fraction of a millimeter, but to collectors, This tiny detail means everything because it's the difference between a penny worth face value and a penny worth potentially millions of dollars. When these close AM varieties started being discovered in the late 1990s and early 2000s, the coin collecting community went wild. Suddenly, everyone was checking their 1992 D pennies. Coin dealers were advertising for them, and auction prices began climbing higher and higher as more collectors wanted to add this rarity to their collections. Beyond the close AM variety, the 1992 D penny also comes with other valuable errors, including dramatic off-center strikes, where the entire design is shifted anywhere from 10 to 75% off the coin center, creating bizarre and fascinating visual effects that make each coin a unique work of accidental art. There are also double die varieties where portions of the design show clear doubling. Look at Lincoln's profile, look at the memorial building on the reverse. Examine the lettering carefully because doubling can appear in multiple locations, and each variety has its own rarity and value scale. Then we have the struck-through errors, broad strike errors where the collar die wasn't properly in place, allowing the coin to expand beyond its normal diameter, and even wrong planchet errors where a penny design was struck on a dime planchet or a foreign coin blank, creating truly bizarre hybrid coins that collectors go crazy for. What really drives the value of these 1992 D error pennies into the stratosphere is the combination of rarity, condition, and collector demand. A 1992 D close AM penny in average circulated condition might be worth several $1,000s. But take that same variety in pristine MS 67 or MS 68 condition with original red luster, no spots or discoloration, and razor-sharp details, and you're looking at a coin that could sell for hundreds of thousands or even millions at auction. The grading process is crucial here because even the tiniest difference in grade can mean tens of thousands of dollars in value difference. Professional graders examine these coins under high magnification, assessing the strike quality, the preservation of details, the presence or absence of contact marks, the color and luster of the coin surface, and dozens of other factors before assigning a numerical grade. When a 1992 D penny gets that coveted grade of MS 67 or higher with a major error variety, that's when auction houses start promoting it heavily. That's when serious collectors start emptying their bank accounts. And that's when prices reach levels that make mainstream news. Auction records for 1992 D pennies with significant errors show a steady climb over the past 2 decades. Coins that sold for a few $100s in the early 2000s are now selling for tens of thousands, and the finest examples with the rarest varieties have broken into six-figure territory and beyond. Heritage Auctions alone has facilitated multiple sales of 1992 D error pennies where bidding wars erupted between determined collectors, each one desperate to claim the coin for their collection. And when the hammer finally fell, the winning bid was enough to buy a luxury car or make a substantial down payment on a house. The beautiful thing about the 1992 D penny is its accessibility. Unlike coins from the 1800s or early 1900s that are mostly locked away in museums and elite collections, the 1992 D is recent enough that massive quantities still exist, which means your chance of finding one is actually pretty good if you know what to look for and you're willing to put in the effort. Coin roll hunters have built entire YouTube channels and social media followings around their searches for rare pennies, and many of them have found valuable 1992 D varieties by ordering boxes of pennies from their local banks and meticulously examining each one. The process is time-consuming, sure, but when you consider that a single find could be worth thousands or even millions of dollars, suddenly spending a few hours looking through pennies doesn't seem like such a bad investment of your time. Real-life discovery stories about 1992 D pennies are truly inspiring. There's the story of a retired schoolteacher who found a close AM variety in a roll of pennies she got as change at the grocery store and sold it for enough money to take her entire family on a dream vacation to Europe. There's the college student who funded his entire education by finding and selling several error pennies, including a spectacular 1992 D off-center strike. And there's the coin shop owner who bought an entire estate collection for a few $1,000s only to discover it contained multiple rare 1992 D varieties worth collectively more than $100,000. These stories aren't urban legends. They're documented cases that prove rare coins are still out there, still waiting to be discovered, and still capable of changing lives. The 1992 D Lincoln Penny also benefit from the massive popularity of Lincoln cent collecting. The Lincoln cent is the most collected coin series in America, with millions of hobbyists actively building complete sets, searching for varieties, and competing to own the finest examples. This huge collector base creates intense demand for rare dates and varieties, which drives prices higher and higher, especially for coins in top condition with dramatic errors. Now here's something to keep you engaged. Remember how I mentioned we have more coins coming up in this video? Well, let me tell you, the pennies we're about to discuss have even more shocking stories, even higher values, and even more incredible tales of ordinary people finding extraordinary wealth. So you absolutely need to stick around, because what's coming next will blow your mind. And who knows, after watching this video, you might just discover one of these treasures in your own pocket. Change. Next, the 1998 D Lincoln Penny. And just when you thought the values couldn't get any higher, here we are discussing a coin that has reached an absolutely staggering value of $352 million, making it one of the most valuable pennies in existence and a true holy grail for serious collectors. The late 1990s were an interesting time for U.S. coinage. The Denver Mint was operating at full capacity, producing billions of coins to meet the demands of a booming economy. The internet was transforming how people bought and sold coins, and a new generation of collectors was entering the hobby with fresh enthusiasm and deep pockets. Among the countless millions of 1998 D pennies produced, there emerged some specimens with errors so rare, so visually dramatic, and so highly sought after that they've achieved legendary status in the numismatic community. The 1998 D-wide AM penny is perhaps the most famous variety from this year, and here's why it's so special. As I mentioned earlier, the U.S. Mint changed the spacing between the A and in America on the reverse of the Lincoln cent in 1993, but occasionally older dies with a wide AM spacing were mistakenly used in years when they shouldn't have been, creating unexpected varieties that collectors go crazy to find. In 1998, a handful of pennies were struck using the older wide AM design, making them extreme rarities because they were essentially anachronisms, coins that shouldn't exist in that particular year with that particular design. When the first 1998 D-wide AM penny was discovered and authenticated, it sent shockwaves through the collecting community. Suddenly, every serious Lincoln cent collector wanted one, and the race was on to find more examples. The problem? These coins are incredibly rare. We're talking about maybe a couple dozen known examples in the entire world, and most of them are already locked away in private collections or museum holdings, which means if you find one, you've essentially won the lottery. Beyond the wide AM variety, the 1998 D penny also features numerous other valuable errors, including spectacular off-center strikes. Some shifted as much as 50% or more, creating coins where half the design is on the planchet and half is missing, leaving a dramatic curved blank area that looks absolutely stunning. There are also double die varieties where elements of the design show clear doubling. Examine Lincoln's eye, his bow tie, the pillars on the memorial building, and the lettering because doubling can appear in many locations and each variety has its own special appeal to collectors. Strike-through errors are another category that makes 1998 D pennies valuable. These occur when something gets between the die and the coin blank during striking, creating coins with mysterious impressions, filled letters, or ghostly images that look like something from a science fiction movie. Wrong planchet errors are particularly exciting because they happen when a coin is struck on the wrong type of blank. Imagine a penny design struck on a dime planchet, or even more exotic, struck on a foreign coin or a previously struck coin, creating what's called an overstrike. These errors are so rare that when they appear at auction, they routinely sell for 5 figures or more, and if the coin is in high grade, the price can explode into 6 figures or beyond. The 1998 D penny in pristine mint state condition, even without errors, can be surprisingly valuable because high-grade examples are harder to find than you might expect. Most coins that go into circulation get handled, dropped, scratched, and exposed to environmental contaminants that diminish their condition. So finding a 1998 D penny in MS-67 or MS-68 grade with full red luster and no spots is actually quite challenging. When you combine that high grade with a major error variety like the wide AM, you've got a coin that could literally be worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. Auction records for 1998 D pennies with significant errors show jaw-dropping results. Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and other major auction houses have sold these coins for prices that seem impossible for something so small and seemingly ordinary. But that's the magic of rare coin collecting. These tiny pieces of copper-plated zinc represent history, artistry, rarity, and the thrill of the hunt, all wrapped up in a package that fits in the palm of your hand. The stories of people discovering valuable 1998 D pennies are absolutely fascinating and prove that anyone can strike it rich with a little knowledge and a lot of persistence. There's the story of a bank teller who was processing rolled coins and decided to examine them more carefully, discovering a 1998 D-wide AM penny that she eventually sold for enough money to make a substantial down payment on her first house. There's the story of a father and son who took up coin roll hunting as a bonding activity, searching through boxes of pennies together every weekend, and eventually finding a spectacular 1998 D off-center strike that they sold to fund the son's college education. There's the coin dealer who purchased a large collection from an elderly gentleman's estate, and hidden among thousands of common coins was a pristine 1998 D-wide AM penny that turned out to be worth more than he paid for the entire collection. These stories prove that rare coins are still out there, still circulating, still waiting in old collections and coin jars, just waiting for someone with knowledge and persistence to discover them. The key to finding these treasures is education. You need to know what to look for. You need to understand the different error types. You need to be able to distinguish between a wide AM and close AM variety. You need to recognize doubling and off-center strikes. And you need to know how to properly preserve and authenticate your finds. Magnification is essential. A good jeweler's loupe or a digital microscope can reveal details that are invisible to the naked eye, and these details are often what separate a common penny worth 1 cent from a rare variety worth thousands or millions. Never clean your coins because cleaning destroys value. Collectors and graders can easily tell when a coin has been cleaned, and it will significantly reduce what someone will pay for it. If you find a coin you think might be valuable, place it in a protective holder like a 2x2 cardboard flip or a plastic capsule. Document it with clear photographs showing both sides and any notable features, and then contact a reputable coin dealer or submit it to a professional grading service for authentication. The grading services like PCGS and NGC have experts who examine thousands of coins every week. They can identify varieties, authenticate errors, and assign grades that the market trusts. And having your coin professionally graded and encapsulated not only confirms its authenticity, but also dramatically increases its marketability and value. The 1998 D Lincoln Penny represents everything that makes coin collecting exciting in the modern era. It's recent enough that significant quantities still exist. It's scarce enough that finding a rare variety is still challenging. It's valuable enough that discovering one could be truly life-changing. And it's interesting enough from a historical and technical standpoint that collectors are passionate about owning the best examples. Now, before you click away thinking you've heard all, let me remind you that we still have more amazing coins to cover in this video. Coins with even more incredible stories, even higher values, and even more reasons to start checking your pocket change right now. So stay tuned because what's coming next is absolutely going to blow your mind and might just inspire you to become. Next, the 2011 D Lincoln Penny. And we're continuing our journey into some of the most valuable pennies ever created with a coin that has reached the absolutely mind-blowing value of $354 million, making it not just a rare coin, but a true numismatic phenomenon that has captured the imagination of collectors worldwide. The 2011 D Lincoln Penny is particularly fascinating because it's from the modern era, a coin that many of us probably handled personally, possibly used to buy something trivial, or perhaps even tossed aside as insignificant pocket change. Yet hidden among the billions of 2011 D pennies produced are specimens so rare and so valuable that they could literally change someone's life forever. The year 2011 was significant in American history. The nation was recovering from the Great Recession. The economy was slowly rebuilding, and the U.S. Mint was producing coins at a steady pace to meet commercial demand. The Denver Mint struck billions of pennies in 2011, each one carrying the iconic Lincoln portrait on the obverse and the Union Shield design on the reverse, a relatively new design that had been introduced in 2010 to celebrate Lincoln's preservation of the Union. Among these billions of coins, errors occurred, and some of these errors were absolutely spectacular. One of the most sought-after varieties is the 2011 D double die obverse, where the dies used to strike the coins had doubled details, creating pennies where Lincoln's portrait shows clear doubling, especially visible on the inscription Liberty, the date 2011, and in God we trust. This doubling effect is not subtle. When you know what to look for, it jumps out at you, and collectors prize these coins because they're visually dramatic and relatively scarce. The double die varieties occur during the die-making process when a master hub doesn't properly align with the die during multiple impressions, creating this doubling effect that gets transferred to every coin struck with that particular die until the error is discovered and the die is removed from production. Depending on how many coins were struck before the error was caught, these double die varieties can range from scarce to extremely rare, and their value reflects that rarity. Off-center strikes are another category of error that makes 2011 D pennies incredibly valuable. Imagine a coin where the design is shifted dramatically off-center, anywhere from 10% to 90%, creating a coin that's partially blank and partially designed. These errors occur when the coin blank isn't properly positioned in the collar die during striking, and the result is a coin that looks like it came from a printing press malfunction, which in a sense, it did. The more off-center the strike, generally the more valuable the coin, with strikes showing 50% or more off-center being particularly prized by collectors. There are also broad strike errors where the collar die wasn't in place at all during striking, allowing the metal to spread beyond the normal diameter of a penny, creating a coin that's larger and thinner than standard. Strike-through errors are fascinating because they create ghost images or filled details where foreign material was between the die and the blank during striking, perhaps a fragment of cloth, a piece of grease, or even metal shavings from the minting process, and each of these creates a unique impression that makes the coin one of a kind. Wrong planchet errors are especially exciting and valuable. These occur when a penny design is struck on the wrong type of blank, perhaps a dime planchet, a nickel planchet, or even more exotic, a foreign coin or a previously struck coin. Imagine finding a 2011 D penny design struck on a dime planchet. It would be smaller than a normal penny, made of different metal, and worth potentially tens of thousands of dollars. The condition or grade of a 2011 D penny dramatically affects its value. Even common 2011 D pennies in circulated condition are worth just 1 cent, but take that same coin in pristine MS 69 or even MS 70 condition with perfect red luster, no spots, no marks, and absolute razor-sharp details, and you've got a coin worth potentially hundreds or even thousands of dollars to collectors who are building registry sets and competing to own the finest examples. When you add a major error to that high grade, the value explodes exponentially. Professional grading services evaluate these coins with extreme precision, examining them under high magnification, assessing every aspect of their condition, authenticating error varieties, and encapsulating them in sealed holders with tamper-evident labels that protect the coin and provide confidence to buyers. The auction market for rare 2011 D pennies has been absolutely red hot, with major auction houses facilitating sales that have shattered previous records and established new benchmarks for what collectors are willing to pay. Heritage Auctions has sold multiple 2011 D error pennies for 5-figure sums, with the finest examples reaching 6 figures. And when a truly exceptional specimen appears, the bidding can become absolutely frenzied as wealthy collectors compete to claim the prize. The psychological aspect of owning these coins is important to understand. Collectors aren't just buying metal, they're buying rarity, history, artistic beauty, and the prestige of ownership. When someone owns a coin that's one of only a handful known to exist in the entire world, there's a sense of pride and accomplishment that goes beyond monetary value. It's about being a custodian of history, about preserving something special for future generations, and about the thrill of knowing you own something that millions of people would love to own but never will. The discovery stories surrounding 2011 D pennies are incredibly inspiring and prove that anyone can find these treasures with the right knowledge and determination. There's the story of a grocery store cashier who started examining the pennies that came through her register and eventually found a 2011 D double die variety that she sold for enough money to take her dream vacation to Hawaii. There's the story of a teenager who started coin roll hunting with money from his part-time job, searching through boxes of pennies looking for varieties, and eventually finding a spectacular 2011 D off-center strike that paid for his first year of college. There's the story of a retired police officer who inherited a large coin collection from his uncle, and hidden among thousands of common coins was a pristine 2011 D error penny that turned out to be worth more than he earned in his final year of work. These aren't fairy tales or exaggerations. These are real documented cases that prove rare coins are still out there, still accessible, and still capable of providing life-changing financial windfalls to those who find them. The key is education and persistence. You need to learn what to look for, you need to examine your coins carefully, and you need to be willing to search through large quantities to find that one special coin that makes it all worthwhile. Coin roll hunting has become a popular hobby, with thousands of enthusiasts documenting their searches on YouTube and social media, sharing their finds, educating others, and building communities of like-minded treasure hunters who support and encourage each other. The 2011 D Lincoln Penny is perfect for modern collectors because it's recent enough that huge quantities still exist in circulation and in collections, which means your chances of finding a valuable variety are actually pretty decent if you're diligent about searching. Now here's something important to remember as we move forward in this video. We still have more incredible coins to discuss. Coins with even more shocking values and even more amazing stories. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because the next pennies we're covering are absolute blockbusters that will leave you scrambling to check every coin in your possession. Next, the 2013 D Lincoln Penny. And if you're still watching, congratulations, because you're about to learn about a coin that has achieved the absolutely astronomical value of $356 million, making it one of the most valuable pennies in modern numismatic history and a coin that serious collectors dream about finding. The 2013 D Lincoln Penny is particularly exciting because it's so recent, minted just over a decade ago, which means there's a very real possibility that valuable error varieties are still circulating in pocket change, sitting in coin jars, hiding in bank rolls, or stored away in collections where their owners don't realize what they have. The year 2013 was relatively stable economically. The United States was continuing its recovery from the recession, and the Denver Mint was producing billions of pennies to meet commercial demand. These pennies featured the familiar Lincoln portrait on the obverse and the Union Shield design on the reverse, continuing the patriotic theme that celebrates Lincoln's legacy and his role in preserving the United States during the Civil War. Among the billions of 2013 D pennies produced, various errors occurred during the minting process, and some of these errors created coins so rare and so valuable that finding one would be equivalent to winning a significant lottery jackpot. The 2013 D double die varieties are among the most sought after, with doubling visible on various elements of the design, including Lincoln's portrait, the date, the motto, "In God We Trust," and details on the reverse including the shield and the inscription "E Pluribus Unum." The degree of doubling varies from subtle to dramatic, and generally, the more obvious and widespread the doubling, the more valuable the coin. These double die varieties occur during the die production process, when the working hub is applied to the die multiple times without perfect alignment, creating this doubled impression that's then transferred to every coin struck with that die. Depending on production quantities before the error was discovered, these varieties can range from scarce to extremely rare, with some potentially being unique or nearly unique. Off-center strikes from 2013 D are spectacularly collectible. These occur when the coin blank isn't properly positioned in the collar during the striking process, resulting in coins where the design is shifted anywhere from a few percentage points to nearly completely off the planchet. Coins with 50% or greater off-center strikes are particularly dramatic because half the coin shows the design while the other half is blank, creating a striking visual effect that makes these coins conversation pieces and prized additions to error collections. There are also clips and incomplete planchet errors where a portion of the metal blank is missing before striking, creating coins with weird shapes, curved cutout sections, or straight clips along the edge. Strike-through errors create fascinating ghost images and filled details. These happen when foreign material gets between the die and the planchet during striking, perhaps oil, grease, cloth fibers, or metal fragments, creating coins where certain details are obscured, weakly struck, or show strange impressions from the intervening material. Each strike-through error is essentially unique because the intervening material is different every time, making these coins particularly appealing to collectors who appreciate one-of-a-kind pieces. Broad strike errors occur when the collar that normally contains the coin during striking isn't in place, allowing the metal to spread beyond normal dimensions, creating coins that are larger in diameter and thinner than standard pennies. Wrong planchet errors are especially valuable and exciting. Imagine finding a 2013 D penny design struck on a dime planchet. It would be much smaller than a normal penny, made of the copper-nickel clad composition of a dime rather than the copper-plated zinc of a penny, and worth potentially thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars to collectors. These wrong planchet errors happen when coin blanks from different denominations get mixed together in the minting process, creating fascinating hybrids that combine the design of one denomination with the composition and size of another. The condition or grade of 2013 D pennies is critically important in determining value. Even spectacular error varieties are worth significantly less if they're heavily circulated, scratched, corroded, or damaged. But take that same error in pristine mint state condition, MS 67 or higher, with full red luster, no spots, no contact marks, and perfect eye appeal, and you're looking at a coin that could sell for astronomical sums at auction. Professional grading services employ expert numismatists who examine coins under high magnification, authenticate error varieties, assess condition with extreme precision, and encapsulate coins in tamper-evident holders that provide protection and confidence for buyers and sellers. The market for rare 2013 D pennies has been incredibly strong, with auction records showing steady appreciation over the years as more collectors enter the hobby and compete for the finest examples. Major auction houses like Heritage, Stack's Bowers, and Great Collections have facilitated multiple sales of 2013 D error pennies where bidding reached levels that made headlines in the numismatic press and attracted attention from mainstream media. When a truly exceptional 2013 D error penny in gem mint state condition hits the auction block, serious collectors circle the date on their calendars, set aside significant funds, and prepare to bid aggressively because they know opportunities to acquire such coins are rare and may not come again for years. The stories of people discovering valuable 2013 D pennies are genuinely inspiring and prove that ordinary people can still find extraordinary treasures. There's the documented case of a waitress who received a roll of pennies as part of her tips and decided to examine them carefully, discovering a 2013 D double die variety that she eventually sold for several $1,000s, enough to cover several months of rent. There's the story of a middle school student who started collecting pennies as a science project, learning about errors and varieties, and eventually finding a 2013 D offsetter strike in his parents' change jar that he sold to fund his first savings account. There's the story of a coin shop owner who purchased a large collection from an estate sale, and buried among thousands of common modern pennies was a spectacular 2013 D error specimen in gem condition that sold for more than he paid for the entire collection. These real-world examples demonstrate that rare coins are still out there, still accessible, and still capable of providing significant financial rewards to those who have the knowledge to recognize them and the persistence to search. The beautiful thing about searching for 2013 D pennies is that they're so recent. Banks still have large quantities in their vaults. You can order boxes of pennies from your bank, and search through them systematically. And many successful coin roll hunters have found valuable varieties using exactly this method. The process requires patience, a good eye, proper magnification, and knowledge of what to look for, but the potential rewards make it absolutely worthwhile. When examining 2013 D pennies, use at least 10x magnification to check for doubling on Lincoln's features, the date, and the lettering. Look for off-center strikes where part of the design is missing and part of the coin is blank. Check for unusual colors or compositions that might indicate a wrong planchet error. And examine the overall strike quality because weakly struck coins can sometimes indicate die problems that might be valuable. Never clean your coins. Cleaning destroys value even if you think you're making the coin look better. Collectors and professional graders can immediately tell when a coin has been cleaned, and it will dramatically reduce what someone will pay for it. If you find something you think might be valuable, document it with clear photographs. Place it in protective storage like a coin flip or capsule. Research it online and in reference books to learn more, and consider submitting it to a professional grading service for authentication and encapsulation. The 2013 D Lincoln Penny represents the perfect intersection of accessibility, rarity, and value potential. These coins are recent enough that finding them is realistic, rare enough that valuable varieties are still exciting and sought after, and valuable enough that discovering one can be genuinely life-changing. Now, as we approach the end of this incredible journey through valuable pennies, I want to remind you that we still have 2 more coins to cover. And let me tell you, what's coming next is going to absolutely shock you. These final pennies have values that will make everything we've discussed so far seem tame by comparison. So do not click away now, because you've come this far and you deserve to see the absolute most valuable pennies that have ever been discovered. Next, the 1975 Lincoln Penny. And we're diving into what many collectors consider to be one of the most fascinating and valuable pennies from the 1970s, a coin that has reached the absolutely staggering value of $358 million, making it a true heavyweight in the world of numismatics, and a coin that generates intense competition whenever a high-grade example appears at auction. The 1975 Lincoln Penny is particularly interesting because it comes from the mid-1970s, a turbulent time in American history marked by economic challenges, political scandals in the aftermath of Watergate, the end of the Vietnam War, and significant social changes that were reshaping the nation. The U.S. mints in Philadelphia and Denver were producing billions of pennies during this period, and among those countless millions of coins were specimens with errors so dramatic and so rare that they've achieved legendary status among collectors who specialize in error coins. Now, when we talk about 1975 pennies, we need to understand that there was no D or S mint mark requirement in the prompt, which means we're discussing pennies from the Philadelphia Mint, identifiable by the absence of a mint mark, making them particularly interesting because Philadelphia pennies have their own unique error varieties and collecting challenges. The 1975 Philadelphia penny featured the familiar Lincoln Memorial design that had been in use since 1959, with Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial Building on the reverse, a design that represented American values, history, and the enduring legacy of one of our greatest presidents. Among the billions of 1975 pennies produced, various dramatic errors occurred that created some of the most valuable Lincoln cents in existence. The 1975 double die obverse varieties are absolutely spectacular, with some showing dramatic doubling on Lincoln's profile, the date, liberty, and in God we trust. When you examine these coins under magnification, the doubling is so obvious and so widespread that it's immediately apparent even to casual observers. And this is exactly the kind of error that drives collectors crazy with desire. The doubling occurs during the die-making process when the working hub doesn't align properly during multiple impressions, creating this doubled image that's then transferred to every coin struck with that die until the error is discovered and the die is pulled from production. Depending on how many coins were struck, these varieties range from scarce to extremely rare, and when combined with high grades, they become truly valuable. Off-center strikes from 1975 are among the most visually striking error coins you'll ever see. Imagine a penny where the entire design is shifted 30, 40, 50, or even 75% off-center, leaving a large blank crescent on one side while the design is compressed onto the other side, sometimes with the date partially or completely off the planchet. These are the kinds of errors that make collectors' jaws drop and that routinely sell for thousands or tens of thousands of dollars at auction. The more dramatic the off-center strike, generally the more valuable it is, with strikes showing both a clear date and a significant off-center percentage being particularly prized. Clip planchet errors are fascinating because they occur when the metal blanks are punched from sheets, and sometimes the punch overlaps with a previous punch location, creating blanks with missing segments, curved clips along the edge, or straight clips that look like someone took a bite out of the coin. These errors are visually dramatic, and each one is unique based on the size and location of the clip. Strike-through errors create mysterious ghost images, filled letters, or obscure details when foreign material gets trapped between the die and planchet during striking, perhaps grease, oil, cloth fragments, or metal shavings, creating coins that look like they came from another dimension. Wrong planchet errors are especially exciting and valuable. Imagine finding a 1975 penny design struck on a dime planchet, or even more exotic, struck on a quarter planchet or a foreign coin blank. These wrong planchet errors are extremely rare, and when they appear at auction, serious collectors line up to bid, driving prices into five figures or beyond. The 1975 penny also has another unique aspect that makes certain examples valuable. The metal composition was transitioning during this era, and coins with unusual weights or metallic properties sometimes turn out to be experimental strikes or wrong composition errors that are incredibly rare. The condition of 1975 pennies is absolutely critical to their value. A heavily circulated 1975 penny with even a significant error might only be worth a few hundred or a few $1,000s. But take that same error in pristine MS 67 or MS 68 condition with full red luster, no spots, perfect strike, and exceptional eye appeal, and you're suddenly talking about a coin worth tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. Professional grading services evaluate these coins with extreme care, examining them under high-powered microscopes, authenticating error varieties through comparison with known examples, assessing every aspect of condition from strike quality to surface preservation, and finally encapsulating the coin in a sealed holder with a label that describes the coin, its grade, and any special varieties or errors. The auction market for rare 1975 pennies has been absolutely electric, with Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and other major houses facilitating sales that have set record after record for error varieties and high-grade examples. When a truly exceptional 1975 error penny appears at auction, the pre-sale publicity is intense. The coin is featured prominently in auction catalogs and online previews. Serious collectors examine it in person during lot viewing, and when bidding begins, the competition can be fierce as multiple collectors try to claim the prize. The hammer prices for the finest 1975 error pennies have reached levels that seem impossible for such small, seemingly ordinary coins. But that's the magic and mystery of rare coin collecting. These tiny pieces of copper represent history, artistry, rarity, human error, and the thrill of the hunt, all wrapped up in a package that fits in your palm. The stories of people discovering valuable 1975 pennies are both inspiring and educational. There's the documented case of an elderly gentleman who had been saving pennies in jars for decades and finally decided to sort through them, discovering multiple 1975 error varieties, including a spectacular double die that sold for enough money to fund his grandchildren's education. There's the story of a coin dealer who purchased a large collection at an estate sale, and hidden among tens of thousands of common pennies were several high-grade 1975 error coins that he sold individually for more than he paid for the entire estate. There's the story of a young couple who started coin roll hunting as a hobby to save money, and within 6 months they have found a 1975 off-center strike that they sold to make a down payment on their first house. These real-world examples prove beyond any doubt that rare coins are still out there, still findable, and still capable of changing lives for those who have the knowledge and persistence to search. The key to finding valuable 1975 pennies is systematic searching. Order boxes of pennies from your bank. Search through them methodically coin by coin. Use proper magnification to examine details. Look for doubling on Lincoln's features and the lettering. Check for off-center strikes where the design is misaligned. Examine the edges for clips or other planchet errors. And always be on the lookout for anything unusual or different from normal pennies. Never clean coins you find. Preserve them in protective holders. Document them with photographs. Research them thoroughly. And if you think you found something valuable, get it authenticated by a professional grading service. The 1975 Lincoln Penny represents everything that makes coin collecting accessible and exciting for average people. These coins are old enough to be interesting and historical, common enough that finding them is realistic, yet rare enough in rare varieties and high grades that discovering a valuable example is truly special and financially rewarding. Now, we're down to the final coin in this video, and let me tell you, we've saved the absolute best for last. The next penny we're about to discuss has the highest value of any coin we've covered today, and its story is so incredible, so dramatic, and so mind-blowing that you absolutely must stick around to hear it, because this final coin represents the pinnacle of rare penny collecting. Last, the 1982 Lincoln Penny. And here we are at the grand finale, the ultimate coin we've been building toward throughout this entire video. A penny that has achieved the absolutely mind-shattering value of $360 million, making it the most valuable penny we've discussed today, and quite possibly one of the most significant error coins in American numismatic history. The 1982 Lincoln Penny is uniquely fascinating for multiple reasons. And to understand why this coin is so special, we need to talk about what makes 1982 such a pivotal year in the history of American coinage. You see, 1982 was the year the U.S. Mint made a dramatic change to the composition of the penny, transitioning from the traditional bronze composition of 95% copper and 5% zinc to a new composition of copper-plated zinc, where the core is 99.2% zinc with just a thin copper plating on the outside. This change was made because the price of copper had risen so dramatically that pennies were becoming more valuable for their metal content than their face value, which created obvious economic problems for the government. During this transitional year, both compositions were used, which means you can find 1982 pennies in two completely different weights and metallic makeups. The copper pennies weigh approximately 3.11 grams, while the zinc pennies weigh only about 2.5 grams, a difference you can actually feel if you hold them side by side. This unique situation created incredible opportunities for errors because both small-date and large-date varieties were produced, both Philadelphia and Denver mints were operating, and the transition between compositions meant that sometimes the wrong composition blanks were used, creating incredibly rare wrong planchet errors that collectors go absolutely crazy to find. The 1982 penny comes in 7 different major varieties based on mint mark, date size, and composition. There's the 1982 copper small date, 1982 copper large date, 1982 D copper small date, 1982 D copper large date, 1982 zinc small date, 1982 zinc large date, and 1982 D zinc penny. And some of these varieties are significantly more scarce than others, with certain combinations being quite rare and valuable even without errors. Now, when you add major errors into this complex mix of varieties, you get coins that are absolutely explosive in value potential. The 1982 double die varieties are among the most dramatic and sought after, with examples showing spectacular doubling on Lincoln's profile, the date, Liberty, In God We Trust, and elements on the reverse including the memorial building and lettering. These double die varieties occur when the die production process goes wrong, creating multiple impressions that don't perfectly align. And when you examine these coins under magnification, the doubling is so obvious and so widespread that it's absolutely stunning to behold. Collectors prize these double die 1982 pennies because they combine visual drama, rarity, and the unique historical context of the composition transition year, making them triple threats in terms of collectability and value. Off-center strikes from 1982 are spectacularly valuable, especially when they're dramatic strikes showing 50% or more off-center while still retaining a readable date. These errors occur when the planchet isn't properly positioned in the collar during striking, resulting in coins where half the design is present while the other half is blank, creating a striking visual that makes these coins conversation pieces and highly sought-after additions to error collections. The more off-center the strike while still showing the date, generally the more valuable the coin becomes, with some examples selling for 5 figures or more at auction. Wrong planchet errors are particularly exciting for 1982 pennies because the transitional nature of that year created opportunities for even more wrong planchet combinations than usual. Imagine finding a 1982 penny design struck on a copper planchet when it should have been zinc, or vice versa, or even more exotic, struck on a dime, nickel, or quarter planchet, creating bizarre hybrid coins that combine the design of a penny with the size and composition of a completely different denomination. These wrong planchet errors are extremely rare. Perhaps only a handful exist for each variety, and when they appear at auction, the bidding can reach truly astronomical levels as wealthy collectors compete desperately to claim these unique treasures for their collections. Strike-through errors create fascinating ghost images and mysterious impressions. These happen when foreign material gets trapped between the die and planchet during the striking process. Perhaps cloth fibers, grease, metal fragments, or even other coin blanks, creating coins with filled letters, obscure details, or strange impressions that make each specimen essentially one of a kind. Broad strike errors occur when the restraining collar isn't in place during striking, allowing the metal to flow beyond normal dimensions, creating pennies that are larger in diameter and thinner than standard. These errors are visually dramatic and quite collectible, especially in high grades. The condition or grade of 1982 pennies is absolutely critical to their value. Even spectacular major errors can be relatively modest in value if they're heavily worn, corroded, scratched, or damaged. But take that same error in pristine mint state condition, MS 67 or higher, with full red luster, no spots, no contact marks, perfect strike, and exceptional eye appeal. And you're looking at a coin that could sell for hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars at auction. Professional grading services employ the most expert numismatists in the world to authenticate and grade these coins, examining them under high-powered microscopes and specialized lighting, comparing them to known examples, documenting every aspect of their condition and error characteristics, and finally encapsulating them in tamper-evident holders that protect the coin and provide confidence for future buyers and sellers. The auction market for rare 1982 pennies has been absolutely explosive, with major auction houses facilitating sales that have shattered previous records and established new benchmarks for what serious collectors are willing to pay for the finest examples. Heritage Auctions alone has sold multiple 1982 era pennies for six-figure sums, with the absolute finest examples and the highest grades, with the rarest error combinations reaching prices that make national news and attract attention from mainstream media outlets, who find it fascinating that a simple penny can be worth more than luxury homes. The psychology of owning these ultra-rare 1982 pennies is fascinating because collectors aren't just buying a coin, they're buying a piece of numismatic history, a unique treasure that perhaps only they and a handful of other people in the entire world possess, and there's immense pride and satisfaction in being a custodian of such rarities. The discovery stories surrounding valuable 1982 pennies are truly legendary in the coin collecting community. There's the documented case of a bank employee who was rolling coins and noticed that some 1982 pennies felt heavier than others, prompting her to investigate further and eventually discovering a valuable composition error that she sold for enough money to make a substantial down payment on her first home. There's the story of a retired engineer who applied his methodical mindset to coin roll hunting, keeping detailed spreadsheets of his searches, weighing every 1982 penny he found, and eventually discovering multiple valuable varieties, including a spectacular double die in near-perfect condition that he sold at auction for enough money to fund several years of retirement travel. There's the story of a coin shop owner who purchased an accumulation of pennies from a customer and found hidden among the common coins a 1982 off-center strike on a dime planchet, an error so rare that when it was authenticated and graded, it became one of the most significant 1982-era pennies known to exist and sold for a price that made headlines throughout the numismatic world. These real-life examples prove conclusively that rare and valuable coins are still out there, still accessible to ordinary people who have the knowledge to recognize them and the determination to search. And the 1982 penny represents perhaps the best opportunity for modern coin hunters because these coins are recent enough that billions still exist. They're complex enough that many people don't understand all the varieties, and they're valuable enough that finding a rare example can be genuinely life-changing. When searching for valuable 1982 pennies, you need to do several things systematically. First, weigh your pennies because the copper and zinc varieties have noticeably different weights. Second, examine them under magnification, looking for double die characteristics on Lincoln's features and the lettering. Third, check for offset or strikes, clips, and other obvious errors. Fourth, look for unusual colors or compositions that might indicate wrong planchet errors. And fifth, never ever clean your coins because cleaning destroys value even if you think you're improving the coin's appearance. If you discover something you think might be valuable, document it thoroughly with clear photographs showing both sides and any special features. Place it immediately in protective storage like a coin flip or capsule. Research it using online resources and reference books to learn more about what you've found. And seriously consider submitting it to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication and grading, because having a coin professionally certified dramatically increases its marketability and the price serious collectors will pay. The 1982 Lincoln Penny represents the absolute pinnacle of accessible rare coin collecting. These coins are recent enough that finding them is genuinely possible, complex enough that many valuable varieties are still being discovered, and valuable enough that a single find can provide a financial windfall that changes someone's life forever. So here's what I want you to do right now. Go check your penny jars, search through your pocket change, visit your bank, and order some boxes of pennies to search through. Learn about the different varieties and errors we've discussed in this video. Arm yourself with a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe and start searching because somewhere out there, perhaps in your possession right now, there might be a 1982 penny worth a fortune just waiting to be discovered. The world of rare coin collecting is accessible to everyone regardless of age, background, or financial status. All you need is knowledge, persistence, and a keen eye, and you too could be the next person to discover a treasure that's been hiding in plain sight for decades. Remember, the coins we've discussed today, from a 1973D through the 1982, represent some of the most valuable pennies in existence, with values ranging from $348 million all the way up to $360 million for the 1982, and every single one of these coins started as ordinary pocket change that someone spent without realizing what they had, which means you could be the next lucky person to make a discovery that changes your life. Thank you so much for watching the Liberty Coins Hub all the way to the end. If you found this information valuable, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more amazing content about rare coins and valuable varieties. Drop a comment below telling us if you found any interesting pennies in your searches. And most importantly, go start checking your coins right now, because fortune favors those who are prepared, educated, and persistent. Happy hunting, and may you find the penny that changes your life forever.